Hello everyone, today we are here to discuss the previous year NEET questions on sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So moving on to the questions. Attractants and rewards are required for entomophily, hydrophily, cleistomogamy and anemophily. So let's discuss the solution. Entomophily is the use of insects, birds or even small mammals, reptiles for pollination. Hydrophily is the use of water for pollination. Cleistogamy, in which the flower does not open. There is self-pollination in the same flower. Anemophily is the use of wind. So, by logic, attractants and rewardants. So, for water pollination, there is no requirement of attractants or rewardants. For wind pollination also, there is no requirement of attractants or rewardants. For cleistomogamy, there is not even any external pollinating agent. Only in entomophily, insects and birds and mammals, they'll have to come again to the flower. So in order to attract them again to the same flower so that the pollination can occur, there is attractant and rewardant system. So this attractant and reward is nothing but the nectar that is being provided by the flower or some sweet odor, something. Mostly the nectar. The nectar contains fructose and basically that is the attractant here. So here we see the bees, small insects like ants that get on there to the flowers to get the nectar, and then they will carry the pollen and they will go to the other flower, and this will cause the pollination. Insect pollinated plants provide rewards as edible pollen grain and nectar as usual rewards. In order to materialize and maximize the pollination, flowers have developed a set of attributes which are aimed at attracting the pollinators called attractants. So moving on to the next question. Flowers which have single ovule in the ovary are packed into inflorescence are usually pollinated by bee, wind, bat, water. So basically an inflorescence, we'll look at the picture of an inflorescence. So this is an inflorescence, that is, it is not a single unit of a flower. There are many small flowers we see that will combine together as an inflorescence. So this will contain only a single ovule in the inflorescence. So this cannot use any bee or bat, or as a matter of fact any other living organism as method for propagation of pollination. So since this is very small, it can be easily carried over by wind. Water also, these plants do not live in water, so basically they are used they use wind for their pollination. So this is a direct NCERT statement, so I've just explained the logic behind it. Wind pollination or anemophily occurs in flowers which are having a single ovule in each ovary and numerous flowers packed in the inflorescence. It is non-directional pollination. So non-directional refers to the point where there is no particular flow. The wind can be in any direction, so this is called non-directional pollination. So moving on to the next question. A dioecious flowering plant prevents both autogamy and gaetonogamy, gaetonogamy and xenogamy, cleistogamy and xenogamy, autogamy and xenogamy. So a dioecious flowering plant, it has only, in each of the flower there is only a either male or female. There is no both male or female. So in autogamy there is fertilization occurring within the same flower. Gaetonogamy, in which there is a different involvement, genetically it is same, but cross pollination in the same species but in the different plants. Gaetonogamy, as explained. Xenogamy, it is in different population. Cleistomogamy, there is both male and female in the single flower, and the fact is that it won't open at all. The flower won't open at all, so there will be definite self-pollination occurring in the same flower. So autogamy and xenogamy as explained before. So since there are male and female flowers that are in separate plants, so this flowering plant will prevent only autogamy and gaetonogamy. So the solution is it will prevent autogamy and geitonogamy. Autogamy occurs in bisexual flowers, that is in having both male and female. Gaetonomous flowers are unisexual but present in the same plant. Dioecious condition is observed when unisexual male and female flowers are present. So they are all unisexual flowers are present in different plants, and it prevents both autogamy and geitonogamy. So it is better to remember this fact, because in the exam time you won't be able to figure out logically. That will be, we should save time as in biology. So you should remember the fact that autogamy and geitonogamy are prevented in dioecious flowering plants. So moving on to the next question. Which one of the following statement is not correct? So tapetum helps in dehiscence of anther. So this we'll check at the end. Exine of pollen grain is made up of sporopollenin. Yes, this is a very hard substance. It is not degraded by any acid or base or even any temperature. So pollen grains of many species cause allergies. Yes. Example in Parthenium, we know the small white flowers seen in the pathways or in any common places. This is known to cause asthma, skin allergies and various other conditions. Stored pollen grains and liquid nitrogen can be used in crop breeding programs. Yes. The temperature is minus 196 degrees Celsius. So this is, I'm sorry, minus 196 degrees Celsius. Yes, this can be used so that the old plants or even the plants that are becoming endangered, or the plants which are found in very remote places, but we try to develop them here, so we can take their pollen grain and we can use them. So tapetum helps in dehiscence of anther. This is the doubtful state. No, tapetum basically helps in nutrition, and that helps in dehiscence of anther is the epidermis. Epidermis only helps in the dehiscence of anther. So tapetum is important for nutrition and development of pollen grains, as well as source of precursors for the pollen coat. So dehiscence of anther is by the epidermis. So moving on to the next question. Which of the following statement is not correct? Pollen grains of many species can germinate on the stigma of a flower, but only one pollen tube of the same species can grow into the style. So this seems a doubtful one. So insects that consume pollen or nectar without bringing about pollination are called pollen or nectar robbers. Yes, this is a correct statement, because when a flower offers the rewardant or nectar, it expects pollination. So if pollination does not occur, but the insect tends to kind of rob the nectar, it is considered as a thief. Robbers are thief. So it is considered pollen or nectar robbers. Pollen germination and pollen tube growth are regulated by chemical components of pollen interacting with those of the pistil. Yes. If chemical regulation does not occur, there will be no growth of pollen grain at all. So this is correct. Some reptiles have also been reported as pollinators in some plant species. Yes, geckos and lizards have been reported to cause pollination in some plant species. So this seems to be the doubtful one. So pollen grains of many species can germinate on the stigma of a flower, but only one pollen tube of the same species can grow into the style. No, this is not correct. Only pollen grain of the same species can grow in the stigma of the flower. If it cannot, if many species start growing, then it will deprive the stigma of the space, and there will be genetic incompatibility. So the basic mechanism is that the pollen grain will, of the other species will immediately be rejected, and there will be no growth that takes place. So the growth of pollen tube of the same species only will occur in the process. So let's look at the solution. So pollen grains of different species are incompatible, and so they fail to germinate. If the pollen stigma interaction is compatible, The pollen grain hydrates and germinates shortly following the landing on the stigma. So this is the solution. So moving on to the next question. Which one of the following may require pollinators but genetically similar to the autogamy? So xenogamy, apogamy, cleistogamy and gaetonogamy. So xenogamy is the pollination or fertilization that occurs between different species of flowering plants. Apogamy, there is no fertilization at all. So no fertilization occurs, but there is the formation of an embryo, and the further processes are same as in the sexual reproduction. So cleistogamy, in which the flowers do not open at all. The flowers do not open, but there is fertilization. There is fertilization between the anther and the ovule of the same plant. And gaetonogamy. Gaetonogamy, in which the fertilization occurs between the flowers of same species but different plants. Same species flower but different plants. So it is cross pollination, but it is not between a different species. So the genetic lineage is maintained. So genetically it is similar. So moving on to the next question. I'm sorry, let's look at the solution. So gaetonogamy genetically shows similarity with autogamy. So because autogamy also there is only self-pollination, so there is no genetic difference because the pollen grains are born on the same plant. So gaetonogamy. So moving on to the next question. Which of the following is not true? Pollen grains of same plant cause severe allergies and bronchial affliction to some people. Yes, we have discussed this before. The flowers pollinated by flies and bats secrete foul odor to attract them. Yes, bats and many flies are attracted to bat smell, and yes, foul odor refers to bat smell. So this is caused by many of the flowering plants. Honey is made by bees by digesting the pollen. They refer to pollen collected from the flowers. This seems quite doubtful, so let's look at this next option. Pollen grains are rich in nutrients and they are used in form of tablet and syrup. Yes, they are used for athletes and also horses. So this increases their stamina and has proven to show some results. Honeybee is not made by digesting the pollens. We know the insects only take up the nectar. So for the nectar to take place, for the nectar is only being digested and it is being processed by the worker bees. So this nectar contains fructose, which is quite sweet in nature, and that's why honey is made, not by the pollen. So let's look at the solution. Honey is produced by worker bees using nectar, which is fructose of the flowering plant. So that is the wrong statement. So moving on to the next question. The hilum is a scar on the fruit which is attached to the pedicel. Fruit where the style was present, seed where the micropyle was present, seed where the funicle was attached. So let's look at the solution. So here we have the hilum. Hilum is like scar tissue that is present, and it represents the attachment of funicle to the funicle to the seed. So it represents the attachment of the funicle to the seed. So let's look at the solution. So hilum is a scar found on the seed coat through which the developing seeds are attached to the fruit. So moving on to the next question. Which of the following are important floral rewards to the animal pollinators? So nectar and pollen grains, floral fragrance and calcium crystals, protein pellicle and stigmatic exudates, color and large size of flower. So nectar and pollen grains are common attractants and rewardants, so there is no doubt about it. Floral fragrance. So in order to explain the other stuff, floral fragrance and calcium crystals. Floral fragrance is not a reward, it is just an attractant. So here they are asked for only rewards. So here it is only an attractant. Calcium crystals are also not any reward. Protein pellicle and stigmatic exudates are a result of the processes that occur inside the plant. They are not a part of the pollination. The exudates are used as a resins, but these are not meant to be there. just that we humans have used it as resins. Color and large size of flowers are also attractants, they are not rewardants. Attractants, they just try to attract, but the reward is only nectar and pollen grains. So nectar and pollen grains are the usual floral rewards which animal pollinators get. So moving on to the next question. Filiform apparatus is characteristic feature of nucellar embryo, alluron cell, synergids, generative cell. So let's look at the solution. This is basically a direct question. So let me explain with pictures. Nucellar embryo. So nucellus is basically there is embryo cell there, and there is proliferation when there is a case of fertilization, and so this refers to the nucellar embryo. This does not have anything to do with the filiform apparatus. Alluron cell. So when seen in germinating cells, we see that the alluron cell is very protein rich, and it is the outermost cell of the endoderm. So it is the outermost cell of the endosperm. So alluron layer is present in the generating cell. So this is not a part of filiform apparatus. Synergids, yes, synergids have a very important structure known as filiform apparatus. So what this filiform apparatus does is it has finger-like projections, and it enables the growth of pollen grain, the pollen tube, into the synergids, so that the fertilization can occur. So the answer is synergids. So moving on to the next question. Geitonogamy involves fertilization of a flower by pollen from another flower of the same plant. Fertilization of a flower by pollen from the same flower. Fertilization of a flower by the pollen from flower of another plant in the same population. Fertilization of a flower by pollen from flower of another plant belonging to a distant population. So this is basically I'll explain all the pollination methods so that this can become easy. So pollination can be self-pollination and cross-pollination. So self-pollination is the same or different flowers of the same plant, that is the same species. So autogamy and geitonogamy. So autogamy is in the same flower. So geitonogamy is in the different flower. The different flower of the same plant. So chasmogamy, in which there is synchronous opening. So cleismogamy, there is no opening at all. So xenogamy is the process in which there is a pollination between the different species or distant population. So geitonogamy, so given the explanation, so we have the solution here. Fertilization of a flower by pollen from another flower of the same plant is the geitonogamy. If the same flower, if it is autogamy, of the same population, it can be either so fertilization of flower by of the same another plant, it is maybe it involves another plant and not the same plant. So distant population, it is basically xenogamy. So the solution is explained above. So moving on to the next question. So male gametophyte with least number of cells is present in Pteris, Funaria, Lilium and Pinus. So this is basically a factual question. So male gametophyte is present in the angiosperms and is known as pollen grain. So it can be 2 or 3 celled, and so according to the statement, this is a direct statement, so there is no particular explanation. So Lilium is basically an angiosperm, it is a flowering plant, and so there is least number of cells. So the answer is Lilium. So moving on to the next question. Function of filiform apparatus is to recognize the suitable pollen at the stigma, stimulate the division of generative cell, produce nectar, guide the entry of pollen tube. So we know recognition of suitable pollen at the stigma is basically by the stigma itself. There are particular chemical reactions which will either reject or accept the pollen. Stimulate the division of generative cell is not a function of filiform apparatus. Nectar production is also an automatic procedure in the flower generation, and that is the flower growth, so that the fertilization can occur. So here filiform apparatus role comes only after the starting of the fertilization process. So as the fertilization has to occur, filiform apparatus, what it does is it enables the growth of the pollen tube into the synergids, so that there the fertilization can occur. So let's look at the solution. So filiform apparatus helps in entry of pollen tubes into the synergid in the ovule. Filiform apparatus is in form of finger-like projection comprising a core of microfibrils encased in a sheath. It resembles transfer cells meant for short distance movement of metabolites. It is responsible for absorption of food from the nucleus. So moving on to the next question. Megasporangium is equivalent to fruit, nucellus, ovule and embryo sac. So megasporangium is equivalent to fruit, nucellus, ovule and embryo sac. So we know the megasporangium is the female gamete, and it has the other name as ovule. So fruit is after the fertilization has occurred. Nucellus is the outer part of the ovule which covers the embryo sac. So moving on to the next question. So ovule is also called integumented megasporangium. So that is it has a covering called integument. It develops into seed after fertilization in the spermatophytes. It occurs singly or in cluster inside ovary with parenchymatous cushion called placenta. So moving on to the next question. Advantage of cleistogamy is more vigorous offsprings, no dependence on pollinators, vivipary, high genetic variability. So there is no guarantee that there is going to be more vigorous offspring. There can also be inbreeding depression. So this can also lead to less vigorous offspring. So no dependence on pollinators is correct. So there is no need for pollinating agents like any bees or insects. So because it occurs inside a closed flower, there is a definite pollination. Vivipary, no, there is no egg production, so that does not occur here. High genetic variability, no, because it occurs between the same species and of the same flower and the same plant. There is no genetic variability also. So the correct solution is no dependence of pollinators. Cleistogamy favors no dependence on the pollinator because flowers never open. In such flowers, the anther, the stigma lie close to each other. When anthers days in the flower buds, pollen grains come in contact with stigma to affect pollination. So moving on to the next question. Oh, I'm sorry, the questions are over, and thank you for watching Concept Relearning.